Hi everyone, have you ever been confused when it comes to British English and American English? Let me take an example. We have queue and line. Which one do you think is British English and which one do you think is American English? The answer is queue is used in British English and line is used in American English. How surprising it is! Even for most of us, and the foreigners who have used English for a very long time may find these things quite fascinating. Or even in French, there are a lot of words which contain two or more synonyms. For example, the word mère means mother in English, but mama still exists the same meaning. So, like other languages, Vietnamese also has slangs, voices, and dialects. These kinds of points have made Vietnamese more various and ubiquitous. Stay tuned and let's find out what they are with us.
These are peanuts. In Vietnamese, we have different ways to call it. For the north, we call it lạt. And for the middle region, we call it đậu phụng. And lastly, for the south, we call it đậu phộng. Next, we have a pineapple. We also have different ways to call a pineapple in Vietnamese. For the north, we call it quả dứa. And for the middle region, we call it quả gai. And for the south, we call it trái thơm. As you can see, in Vietnam, different regions have different ways to call things. As a consequence, Vietnamese dialects become more diverse and complex than those of English. But don't worry, this video will provide you some general and common words which will help you not misunderstand about these words in Vietnamese. The first one is dish. In the north of Vietnam, the local will say bát, whereas people in the south call chén. It is interesting, isn't it? Bát and chén. Another example is the word ốm, has different meanings depending on regions in Vietnam. It means sick for the north and means thin or small for the south. Therefore, you have to see it many times over and over again or use it in a particular situation in order to remember and use it in a correct way. There are some fascinating words in the middle region. How can we say drop out of classes in Vietnamese? For the national language, we have cúp học, but in the middle, they will say du học. For the national language, we have bảo kê or bảo vệ, but in the middle, they will say rê. Let's move on to the slangs. Every language, including English, has their own slangs to diverse themselves. And Vietnamese slangs are not only different in some words, regions, but it also has various pronouns and verbs to call others or to describe actions. Those words were made up and belong to their regions so that confusion between people from different regions are reasonable. Now there are some examples to prove the complication of slangs versus general words. For the south of Vietnam, we have the slang mần, which means work in English, and làm in Vietnamese. Another slang from the south is cà rem, which means ice cream or game in Vietnamese. And for the last slang of the south, we have chà bá lửa or bự tổ chảng, which means big or huge. For the middle region of Vietnam, we have the slang mô, which means where or đâu in Vietnamese. Another middle region slang is linh, which means gasoline or xăng dầu in Vietnamese. For the last part, we have voices. Just like various ways of pronunciation in English through countries, usually called accent, Vietnamese is also pronounced differently depending on the region of where you live. We will give you some common mistakes in pronunciation between regions of Vietnam. We will go for the north first. Northern people somehow will pronounce a word or term inaccurately, except for Hanoi. First of all, the letter L or L and N or N are sometimes confusing people from other sides of the country or even foreigners. For example, In some cases, the name Lin is pronounced inaccurately to Nin. It also makes a really awkward situation when parents have certificate of birth for their child. They pronounce their child's name imprecisely. Therefore, just because of the parents' inaccurate pronunciation, children have to use the very wrong name for the rest of their lives. It is also hard to distinguish between y, r, and z. For example, northern people will say zo or ro instead of yo, or zanzat instead of ranrat. On the other hand, southern people usually make more mistakes when pronouncing a letter than that of the north. The first mistake is the confusion between un and For instance, they will say ang bum when it's actually ang bun. And to make a great difference between the two words, bun is a kind of food which is noodles, while bum is an action. It doesn't end here. The most common mistake that is surely made when people speak southern accent is ja and ja. It's really easy to recognize that they always pronounce ja for words containing ja. For examples, chúng số instead of chúng số, buổi trưa instead of buổi trưa. And surprisingly, that it usually completely changes the true meanings of the terms or words, or even make them become meaningless, while inaccurate pronunciation is kind of harmless in northern accent. The way Vietnamese people speak a word or term inaccurately often lead to a typographical errors, or typos in short, not only in daily conversation, for example through Facebook, email, and so on, but also in formal or official letters or certificates. Or sometimes we call it lỗi của thằng đánh máy, which means mistakes of the typer for fun.
In short, our video introduced you to some of the misunderstanding points of Vietnamese practices. There are 3 points: slangs, voices, and dialects. It will be helpful for you if you watch this video as many times as possible so that you can feel passionate in learning Vietnamese. We hope this video will encourage you a lot in learning Vietnamese, and if you have any question, please leave it at the comment part. Thank you for watching.